Alzheimer's disease. It is the most common and the most feared form of dementia. First diagnosed in a German woman around the turn of the 20th century, today it affects millions of people worldwide, including tens of thousands of Oklahomans. And the most significant risk factor is something most everyone wants: advanced age.
If you had a room full of people who were all 65 years of age, you might expect that 3 to 5% of them might have Alzheimer's. Fast forward 20 years, they're all 85. Now that number goes to almost half.
But Alzheimer's is not just a disease of the elderly. Many sufferers are relatively young. There are a variety of drugs available to treat the symptoms, but there is no cure yet. A group of scientists working through the Oklahoma Medical Research Foundation is hoping to change that.
Many scientists spend all their life making contributions by discovering facts and never seeing how it benefits people. And I think it's exciting work to do, to be able to see that how it actually benefits people.
On this edition of Stateline, the story of Oklahomans struggling to play the chords of memory.
What is a life? Is it our experiences? Perhaps our collected memories? And like notes on a page, all those moments become a melody, with the faces and events shaping who we are.
We met out in California and just knew it was meant to be immediately.
We just kind of hit it off right off the bat. I hadn't even met her yet, and we looked at each other, and it was just like there was a chemistry there.
I looked at him, his eyes met my eyes, and it was like, wow. Well, we kind of, sort of eloped.
When they were young, the boys, I was their little league coach for a few years during playing baseball, and Megan came along about 8 years after the boys.
We'd go out on the boat and just spend time out on the lake, and I always wanted to go fishing. Even though I didn't like fishing, I'd always just want to go fishing.
I think her and I have had the opportunity to spend more time together than I had with either of the two boys.
Sometimes we just hang out here and watch movies and stuff, but we're pretty close.
When our kids were growing up, well, still our daughter's still growing up, but he would just love sitting down and tutoring them. I couldn't ask for a better partner, a better dad for my children.
It starts like a familiar song missing just one note, unraveling into a missing chord of lost memories. Ultimately, it becomes a daily struggle to hang on for those robbed of everything they have, everything that they are.
I can't say I really noticed anything was wrong. It's just that at that time I was a department manager. I managed a group of about 21 other engineers, and it got to where when you have several projects going, it's like juggling balls in the air. And then it got to where some of the balls would fall out of the air, and I might not even notice that they had fallen out of the air.
Then he started not being able to remember phone numbers for our friends, his regular acquaintances, his extensions at work. After, I think it was 4 months of testing, and the doctor said, I hate to tell you this, But he says, I think it's probable Alzheimer's disease. And we just kind of were in disbelief. It was, oh my gosh, this is the worst case scenario. You know, this can't be fixed.
I really didn't believe it yet.
We actually stopped for breakfast after the appointment, and he said to me 2 or 3 times while we were having breakfast, "Did he just diagnose me with Alzheimer's?" And I said, "Yeah." And it was, he just kept asking the same question, and it was like, it was almost surreal.
My mom, when she was fairly young, got Alzheimer's. We'd see her, and at first she knew, you know, that I was her son, and the next time we'd come see her, she knew me, but she thought I was her brother. And then eventually she didn't know who I was at all. And those kind of things were going through my mind when we were told that I had this.
Individuals with Alzheimer's are so varied. There are some people who, when Alzheimer's starts creeping into their world, they're the first to know. They know something's wrong. They may not know what it is, but they have an uneasiness because they know something's not right.
Today, there are about 5.1 million Americans with Alzheimer's. Over 70,000 of them are Oklahomans. That's an increase of 220% in the last 10 years. Alzheimer's is a progressive degenerative disorder, and so far, there is no cure.
Things that can be affected are sense of time and place, judgment, problem-solving skills, ability to do math, mood. Depression can be a sign of Alzheimer's. Not wanting to engage in the things that you used to really enjoy. Personality changes.
I mean, there's days that he'll have good days and bad days. And like, on his bad days, he's grumpy and he'll get angry about little things. And I mean, that kind of takes a turn on things, but that's just the way it works.
I mean, when he's having a good day, it's like old times, you know, it's great, everything's fine. But when he's having not such a good day, it's difficult at best.
I think it's harder on my family than it actually is on me.
He's really strong for having 3 kids and this disease and dealing with it the way he has. Because he's not scared, and I'd be scared. I am scared for him and for our family.
Alzheimer's that we have seen takes many different routes. We have seen some diagnosed with Alzheimer's and they go downhill very rapidly. We've seen others that hardly change. They have memory problems, but they do not go downhill rapidly. They pretty well reach a plateau and stay there.
The German physician Dr. Alois Alzheimer first described the progressive and fatal brain disorder in 1906. But most of what is known about the disease has been discovered in the last 15 years. The brain has over 100 billion nerve cells called neurons. The neurons communicate and form networks. Some think, learn, and remember, while others see, hear, smell, or tell muscles when to move. Alzheimer's occurs when protein plaques attach themselves and begin building up around the neurons, causing a breakdown in the connections of the brain. At the same time, another protein called tau creates a process inside the cells that tangles the neuron fibers. The plaques and the tangles short-circuit the brain and eventually cause the brain cells to wither and die.
And if you look at an actual brain of a person who died of Alzheimer's, you'll see a lot of shrinkage of the brain. That's what this disease does. It kills brain cells.
Researchers don't know why some people get Alzheimer's and others don't, but some suspect that lifestyle may be a factor.
If you exercise good for your heart, but also keep the risk lower in Alzheimer's disease.
Researchers have observed that African Americans and Hispanics have a much higher risk of the disease, and we think that perhaps that is because they also have a higher risk for vascular disease and diabetes.
We're trying to eat healthier and just trying to get a little bit better balance in terms of our meals. With regard to exercise, there's just a lot. Living on 2.5 acres, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be done.
If you have less cholesterol, you have less chance of Alzheimer's disease. If you read a lot as a child, you have less chance of Alzheimer's disease.
I do a lot of like brain games to keep using my brain when I can. I think your brain is like a muscle. If you don't use it, it's gonna get soft, but if you use it and exercise it, it stays healthier longer.
He's expressed that it gets a little frustrating at times because he'll be reading a book and put it down until the next day, and he'll have to back up several pages to try to recall how it transitioned to that point.
As the longevity increases all over the world, you're going to see this everywhere.
Actually, the number one risk factor for Alzheimer's disease is age, advancing age. So that impacts all of us. If you had a room full of people who were all 65 years of age, you might expect that 3 to 5% of them might have Alzheimer's. Fast forward 20 years, they're all 85. Now that number goes to almost half.
The stress of caring for a loved one can be overwhelming, both emotionally and physically, not to mention financially.
Well, it depends on what the family is dealing with. If they need to be in a memory unit of a nursing home where they can receive round-the-clock care that is specific to dealing with Alzheimer's, then those costs can exceed $50,000 a year. So even if you have a fair amount of money, you can run through a lot of it very quickly.
That's a scary proposition. That's really scary. We have health insurance through his retirement, and I anticipate that between the health insurance, whatever Medicare might be able to help us out. I don't know. You know, to be really honest with you, I don't know how it's going to manage.
As baby boomers reach their 70s and 80s, experts believe the number of Americans with Alzheimer's may jump from 5 million today to 13 million in 2050.
These costs are huge now, but if we don't find effective treatments and a cure, when the numbers get much, much bigger, like we were talking about with the baby boomers aging, this will be the epidemic of our generation and will bankrupt our healthcare system.
Alzheimer's Association, this is Micah.
The Alzheimer's Association helpline gets 230 calls a month from patients and caregivers who find they can't go it alone.
Oftentimes there is some pressing issue. Maybe it's mom can't live alone anymore, it's not safe, or dad can't drive anymore and he doesn't want to give up his keys. Once they do call, once they do connect with us, many times we're able to help not just with the pressing problem, but with some of the other issues that are going on today, and also with anticipating and planning for things that may come down the road.
Normally, the national statistics say for every person that is being cared for, if it's done well, you're going to have anywhere between 5 and 7 caregivers that are going to be sharing the caregiving duties that you might find.
Those who don't have family and friends to help sometimes turn to adult day services.
They can come here for about a third or less. If they were a full pay to come here, it would cost them about $1,000 a month. And being a not-for-profit, one of the nice things about it is if a person can't afford the fees, that's okay.
Adult day services can provide a safe place to be, and meals, and interesting activities, and companionship, and that sense of community and friendship.
The nurse is here to make sure they take their pills properly. We see that they have a good, nutritious meal, and then get engaged in as many activities as we can.
Weldon Johnson has been a familiar face at the Mayfair Adult Day Center for the past 4 years.
Sometimes I watch television, sometimes I come back here, and then I do horseshoes, beanbag, exercise, and trivia, and things like that. Well, I had a touch of Alzheimer's and a diabetic. My wife worked, I couldn't stay at home, so I started coming up here.
They'll come in the morning. They usually meet friends here. It's amazing how many don't want to have breakfast with their family but want to come up here and have a little breakfast with their friends.
Well, I get attention, and I get look at all the women, and I get good food and good fellowship and good people. I like coming here.
It's important to keep active mentally and physically for both the patients and their caregivers at home.
There's the physical aspect of giving hands-on care, particularly when it becomes around the clock, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week job. No one can keep that up indefinitely. The average length of time that a person lives with this disease from the time they're diagnosed is about 6 years or so, but the range from the onset of symptoms can be 3 to 20 plus years.
They're the hidden patient. The caregivers are the ones that are going to be more affected than the people they're taking care of. And if they can't get some help, get some respite, get some time off, it's not unusual to see them go downhill faster than the people that they're taking care of.
Our whole marriage has taken a turn, and where she has taken up so much responsibility that she shouldn't have to have, like balancing the checkbook, paying the bills, and doing all the interfacing with the kids, when it comes to discipline. I mean, she's just taken on so much on her shoulders that it's incredible.
It was hard, I've cried. I've had my moments being depressed. Actually, had to start taking some medication to help with moods because, I'd get upset. But it is demanding. And I've seen a decline in my own health in the last few years.
We see caregivers who get sick and die for no good reason other than the strain and stress of caregiving.
People that are afflicted with Alzheimer's disease can have a quality of life better if family members will get as much help as they can as quickly as possible.
Dr. Jordan Tang and his staff at the Oklahoma Medical Research Foundation are testing a drug that they say could be the cure. A major breakthrough happened 7 years ago when Dr. Tang and his team discovered an enzyme called memapsin-2, or M2, which turns out to be a key player in causing Alzheimer's.
It was asking the right question at the right time with the right technology at your disposal. And even though sometimes you might see it as a serendipity, but serendipity is how the most majority of fundamental scientific information are discovered.
Memapsin-2 acts like a pair of chemical scissors that cut proteins in the body. Dr. Tang noticed that M2 enzymes in Alzheimer's patients were cutting too many proteins. The protein pieces become plaques that then build up around the neurons and over time kill the brain cells.
We designed the first generation inhibitor. It turned out to be extremely potent, very, very good. Go into test tube and stop the scissor cold. But the problem is it didn't look much like a drug. The drug, it has to be small enough, has to be stable in your body, has to be absorbed through the guts.
Once M2 was identified, it became clear. If you can stop the enzyme, you can stop the progression of Alzheimer's.
We can make small molecules and to simulate to go in like what it can cut, but when it go in there, literally it glued to the memapsin-2 and won't let go. And when this happens, we call it an inhibitor. It's like there's a Pac-Man chopping around, and you put the chewing gum into the mouth of the Pac-Man. Now it can't chop anymore, right?
Rather than turn the research over to a pharmaceutical company, Tang's team decided to develop the drug in Oklahoma City. With $60 million from private investment, their company, Comentus, is in the second phase of human trials with the drug.
This target we discovered here, and all the pharmaceutical company, the biggest, richest in the world, and many universities working on this. And nobody so far being able to take an inhibitor into the clinical trial yet. And yet, the small company we created in Oklahoma and move it along, and now it's still no more than 30 people working on this project, able to take it ahead of the biggest giants. Absolutely, I think we are ahead of everybody.
There are only 4 drugs that are currently being used, and they don't cure the disease and they don't stop the disease.
Aricept, Namenda, Razidine, and Exelon work in different ways and have been successful in slowing down the symptoms. For Dale, it was a rough start.
They started putting me on Exelon, and that's a killer stuff. I mean, you take it and it makes your stomach feel bad, it just makes you feel bad all over. Finally, they got this patch that I can wear I can wear Exelon patch, and it doesn't have near the bad effects, it doesn't make me feel crummy.
It's been good because he can just put it on in the morning and he gets a nice even dosage throughout the day.
Right now I'm doing better than what they believed I would be doing right now, and I'm just hoping that it keeps up.
I feel that we now learn enough, and the question in my mind is not whether we have a drug. I think it's more like when are we going to have a drug?
For Alzheimer's patients and their loved ones, the big question is, how long?
We have been able to modify the decline of the memory lost in the mouse model. So we're very encouraged. And if the phase 2 result is so positive, and there will be tremendous demand in the public for the FDA to approve it. Because if that happened, I could see 3-5 years down the road. But I think 10 years is a reasonable time that we should have it before that.
Look at that.
Meanwhile, old photos keep the mind working and memories in tune.
I look at more toward what's going to happen to my wife and children and their children, and so most of my praying is in that direction.
It's very scary. It's because you don't know what's coming, and honestly, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. The doctors have said, Dale, you're doing great. You're doing wonderful. You're doing so much better than we would have expected at this point. But then we've also had another doctor say, but it could all end tomorrow. We don't know if this is going to stay a gradual decline or if tomorrow he's going to wake up and not be able to speak.
As Dale's song continues, every day is a beautiful gift and a challenge to hold on to cherished memories and to make new ones that will live on with the people he loves most.
Sometimes Megan will be crying, and I'm not sure why she's crying, and she says, I don't know if you're going to be at my high school graduation. And that hurt. It's hard.
I hope that my dad is gonna be he's a grandfather now. He just had his first grandbaby, but I'm the youngest of the 3, so hopefully he gets to spend times with my kids like I got to spend times with him.
The drugs currently available for the treatment of Alzheimer's disease mean a great deal to a great many, but a medical cure is at best years away. Nevertheless, some believe any sickness can be overcome by faith. Carrie Machos works with Alzheimer's patients as a Christian Science practitioner.
The Word of God, he says, the Word of God reaches the joints and marrow of the body. Reaching out to God in help, seeing what God knows about us, His love for us. He does not send us sickness. He sends us peace.
Machos says she has seen healing of a variety of mental illnesses, including Alzheimer's disease.
A Christian Science practitioner and their patient goes right to God, right from the get-go, and not from the person-to-person healing, like the practitioner healing. We're both going to God in prayer to see what God knows of this patient. And in that, purification of thought happens, because we're getting away from thinking that our lives have to do with how the brain is functioning, how the body chemistry is working or not working.
The core of Christian Science belief is that creation is innately good and that healing comes as a byproduct of spiritual knowledge.
In Christian Science, we don't give up. We don't say, well, this is the way it is. We're always working for healing. We've got to start challenging what we're seeing and what we're being told all the time, that we have this problem, now we have to live with it, and it means, certain death. Let's start challenging it. That's what Jesus did. He challenged what everyone was living with, and all of his healings prove that the healing power of God is present here today to regenerate the lives of humanity.
Regeneration is the goal, whether by spiritual means or chemical, for the millions of Americans and the tens of thousands of Oklahomans struggling to play the chords of memory.
She's playing now. Come on, Edith. You know how to play it.
I'll pat her on the back.
Yay!
Hooray for our side.
All right! Woo! All right! Great thing! All right! Great! Woo!
Yeah, hooray.
Okay. Edith, now you go back over here and stand, sweetheart. Stand right here. We want you to cheer him on. Now, Barney, you come up and play. You gonna play bingo?
Yeah, I'm there.
Okay, stand up and look this way now. Cheer, guys. Come on. Here we go.
Do we hold hands?
Okay, Barney.
For a VHS or DVD copy of this program, please call toll-free 800-879-6382 during regular business hours, or send a check or money order for $22.95 to the OETA Foundation, Post Office Box 14190, Oklahoma City 73113.